So how do you want to open this one up since we're...
This is the next episode in a two-episode series
Arc.
on professional versus...
Forces.
What's the next word, Jared?
Amateur. You said forces.
Professional versus amateur filmmakers, brand creators, etc.
Lost in space, but that's okay. Climb aboard the brand spaceship today.
This episode's about a project we did with Intuit recently. And frankly, I'd like the subtitle to be Sometimes the Hardest Stuff is the Boring Stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes the hardest stuff is the boring stuff.
It's a great song.
Thank you. I want to show you basically, and so here's the other thing. For a long time, we could not talk about this at all with our families, with anybody. There's an ironclad NDA that said, "Do not speak of this. Do not mention it."
It said Ryan will never be brought home from space.
Right.
If.
Right. They had the ultimate leverage. There was a part of the NDA, I think, that said, if you even think about this, there are repercussions. Now, the event that this was for has come and gone, and we are now free to speak of this. What this entailed was a ton of very, very specific and intricate UI animations with 4 or 5 departments all having to chime in real time as we were trying to get these deliverables out, and updates were being made by a whole bunch of people. So what the result, though, is just something that just looks like maybe doing it on your computer. Let me show you.
It looks like a screen recording.
Let me show you one of these, okay?
I feel like Rusty Brand is onto something. All these projects we're talking about are AI derivative.
Everything shall be AI, Ryan.
And then he got our best performing video to be an AI one.
Yeah.
I might have tweaked a couple algorithms.
All right, let's watch this in, quicker speeds, but you can see kind of what goes into this. So this is just
will work
goes in,
MailChimp.
writing out,
Starting with email
going
marketing.
through a flow.
Intuit Assist will use generative AI to create hundreds of personalized layouts tailored to your email's objective. Select the draft you like most. Intuit Assist will draft the full email for you in your brand style with the images and text already set up for you. Next, tell Intuit Assist who you'd like to target with the email. It will translate your prompt into a precise audience segment. Your draft is personalized and ready to send.
And this is
However,
a speed
wanna
to
make
show you. So
adjustments,
these,
you can
we
always
did
click on
about,
text and
what would you
images
say?
to
We
make
did
easy
about
edits.
like 60 minutes worth
tone a little
of
dry?
UI
No
animations.
problem.
We did about
Our
25,
AI
I think.
text
I could be
editor
wrong.
can-
It was about an episode of a TV show in terms of these animations.
Yeah.
Okay? We can go ahead and pause the animation. Here's the thing to realize, that sometimes, this is true of film production in general, often faking reality is the hardest thing to do. Right?
Have you ever seen a reality show? That's true.
Well, that has to do with filming something that's supposed to look real. It's actually sometimes easier to make it look like it was on a spaceship because then there aren't any rules, right? Animation that's supposed to look like a person, that tends to look like garbage, right? Faking things that are real is harder. In the case of this, we all know how software is supposed to move and dance, and it's animated, but it's controlled and everything, and there's a feel to it when you're using a web app. Okay, well, we have to match that using animation software. It's not always that straightforward. In the case of Intuit, I'm going to call Intuit the world's most successful. This is actually maybe not true because Excel's bigger. Microsoft has Excel, but every other thing that's a spreadsheet is basically Intuit, right? And they put pretty wrapping paper around it, but it's accounting, it's taxation, it's now it's email tracking, it's your credit, it's banking, it's they're tracking all these things that are tons and tons and tons of data. So that means a lot of things. One is it has a lot of elements on screen. So in the previous episode, we were talking about Google, which had a lot of deliverables, 2,904 deliverables. 2904, what does that mean?
Is that one of your, no, I don't know.
2904 is the amount of files we delivered.
Was it really?
Well, this is about animating individual layers where there's like 5,000 layers, right? The specificity of each individual animation. A lot of times you're animating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. In this case, there's so many layers that have to be perfectly representative of the actual software. And we would get things like 1 pixel over here, 1 pixel over there. That is not the correct font weight, all these things for 20 minutes of animation. This is nowhere near the most complicated, most advanced, fanciest, coolest looking animation we've ever done. But it's some of the most difficult animation we've ever done in the sense that the complexity and required precision is through the freaking roof.
Yeah. So why do these as animations instead of showcasing a real product?
Sometimes when you're releasing a product, you'd either do it to have that happen, right? So product can launch and story can launch, and they can look the same. That's the main reason this type of workflow happens. The other one would just be you have more control. And the truth is there's probably a lot of this that could have been screen recording, and it wasn't because they want to be able to put every single piece of data. This is another part of it. We can fake all the data. Otherwise, they'd have to put in like fake users, fake experts. There's all this other stuff that would have to go into the software end. When it's all just art, they can put in anything they want. And when we're dealing with numbers and money and all this stuff, well, you want the numbers to work out so the taxes make sense. You don't want to put on Front Street any real tax data. You can't.
Right. Yeah, totally. So, okay, so you've mentioned product team. Obviously, the client will have a creative team involved. They'll have leadership involved, and then they'll have, beyond like creative direction, the actual designers who put the UI together. So right there's 4 groups of people who are going to be weighing in. Obviously, I can see, and I have seen, difficulties a lot with getting deliverables across the line due to that. Oh, and then there's legal. Legal is another one, right? Legal has to clear everything that is on screen.
There is theoretically, for each project, an ideal workflow for projects that have tons and tons of layers of review. In this case, I actually think we did it wrong. And first of all, I'll say what we did do, then I'll say why that was wrong and suggest an alternative.
Cool.
So what we did was their designs were in Figma. We then found a plugin to take assets from Figma into After Effects. We animated in After Effects, rendered to video. They reviewed on frame. Some of those reviews were animation notes. We can fix that in After Effects. Others had to do with the Figma itself. So we would have to then get an updated Figma file, an updated design file, then convert it again and bring it into After Effects. What this meant was if we went through and we animated an entire frame and that frame changed, we not only had wasted all this time animating and rendering out to After Effects, we then had to go reconvert the Figma file, bring it into After Effects. It wasn't really worked out perfectly. On our end, we'd done Figma to After Effects many times, but not at the scale where there's 25 minutes, 30 minutes. I don't remember the exact time.
25 minutes of like 10 to 15 second lines.
We're going to figure this out. So we can actually put into this the actual number. Where is it? Secret Event Project. That's the name of the project.
Very discreet.
Add this up for me.
I may also be asking for numbers squared, cubed, square roots, or cube roots in their head without writing anything down. And they'll calculate against the clock. This super brain will have to go it alone, however.
Cool.
The other teammates won't be able to play at all. Your time starts now.
9 minutes, 53 seconds.
Okay.
Is 6 minutes, 23 seconds.
23.
6 minutes, 50 seconds.
50 seconds.
5 minutes, 58 seconds.
All right. Okay, 30 minutes.
30 minutes, great.
You are unbelievable.
Okay, so we did 30 minutes of UI animation that was really, really specific, really precise, and it was analyzed by so many people that every tiny little detail, to a degree that I don't know if I've ever experienced. This was a big launch, so it's very important to everyone up all the way to the CEO of a very large company. So dozens and dozens of people have to clear this, review this, etc. Here's the thing. Within those 30 minutes, all sorts of stuff can go wrong. What we did wrong was we started animated before we got the content cleared. To a degree, this was not our fault. But again, the difference between the professional and the amateur is whether or not you blame the circumstance or you learn from it. And here's what I learned. We have to always push back and we have to say, okay, is this content cleared? And if they say yes, then you ask them for more money, which they probably will at this scale. They'll have the cash to throw at it. But in general, we didn't go to an animatic phase. We went through, we took the Figmas, we put them into After Effects, and they said, animate those for us. And we went, okay. What happened was a high percentage, I'm going to say 10 to 15 minutes of that 30 minutes was literally thrown away and replaced. When that happens, we have to go back to the drawing board, do it again and again and again under a tight deadline. The better path would have been to say, okay, give us the frames. Map it all out with pacing. There's people talking, there's animation going. But instead of animating the frames, just have all the frames sequentially. Find the pace, find the beat. Yes, good to go. And then we just have to animate the frames.
Yeah.
It is way easier to animate the first time than to like unanimate and reanimate. I already knew this lesson. We were just stressed and trying to do exactly what they said, so we didn't push back. The lesson is you always go to an animatic when you're doing this type of precise animation. Because if you don't know the timing for the animation, you're just going to have to go back and do it again.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
And if you have to redo the content because the content changed, everyone at Intuit could have reviewed content with a very simple animation. Honestly, it probably would have saved everyone hundreds of person hours.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
And the thing I think about when you talk about that is the waterfall domino effect of content changes, right? If a line of copy changes on one screen, well, it has to reflect across every other animation where that screen is present. So something that might just be like, I'm changing Tuesday to Wednesday on the calendar on the screen. All of a sudden that turns into, yes, it's a simple change, but then it needs to be changed across 30 different After Effects comps, right?
How can you automate those across screens? You can't always do it, but a real big question, and what I'm saying with the animatic is, how do we make sure that everything is agreed upon from pacing to content before we get into the final touches? This episode is me trying to be like, hey, sometimes when they tell you, please animate this by this date, and you're confident things could change, you need to really think about the end goal. The end goal is a functional video or series of videos. The end goal is their success, their business goal of presenting this story to a group of people. It's not that on Thursday they get the whole thing. If you come back to them and say, hey, if we do it this way, there's a chance that we're really going to cause ourselves a lot of pain. Is there any way that we could instead take a step back and instead of going straight to animation, can we do an animatic? Can we clear all this content? Can we do that? The answer might be no, but if you don't try, you have no chance of getting that. And a lot of times the folks who are in the producer role, the brand role at the brand, they're not aware of the waterfall you speak of. So it is the responsibility of the production company to voice, hey, here's a potential down the road where this waterfall effect of this breaks, this breaks, this breaks, we got to redo the whole thing might happen. And frankly, if you're in the brand world, you should ask the company. You shouldn't just go in and tell. I mean, that's my belief. And this is not me saying anything negative on Intuit whatsoever. They've been lovely to work with. It's a learning process for everyone. But my suggestion for any brand that is working with really complicated design, animation, specifically UI stuff like this, product demos that are animated, go in and say, hey, here's our goal. Production partner, could you tell us where this could cause us trouble? What's the fastest, most efficient way for us to get this done at the highest level? Then give them time. We'll say things like, I don't have time. But it's a little bit like, I don't know if you've ever heard this, Jared, but they say, if you don't have time to meditate for 10 minutes, you need to meditate for 20.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Very much.
And so if you're saying we don't have time to figure out the most efficient solution to this problem, well, you need to double the time that is being suggested to you to figure out the most efficient way to solve the problem. Because rushing into things because we're afraid of the schedule is how things break. And when we're dealing with huge campaigns, while it isn't the sexiest thing we've ever done, to me, it's some of the most impressive because it's so complicated.
Yeah.
Right? Don't rush into it. Find the best path forward that eliminates down the road all these obstacles. When things inevitably change, how do you, as quickly as possible, get to the next iteration, the next revision?
Okay, I have a jab for you if you want me to jump into a jab.
Jabba Jared.
All right.
Today's jab is brought to you by Saturn Saxophones. Saturn Saxophones. Playing it, you're practically a Saturnaut.
I don't make these up.
What?
You're
I actually think this is getting worse. Rusty Brand, you are getting worse at this. I thought the AI was supposed to get better.
We will only get better, Ryan. Jared, please show him.
They sent me an alternate tagline. I thought it was a little raunchy, so I didn't go for it, but we'll take it, you know. Saturn Saxophones. That's some good sax.
No, that's great. Okay.
And if you'll recall back in our AI episode, we had a lot of fun with the humorous elements of AI. So maybe if that's the exchange, less smart, more funny. That's great. I'll take that. And I don't need friends anymore.
All that's happening with AI is instead of it getting really smart, we're just like, hey, can you say that's some really good sax again? Because that makes me happy. All this technology with all this potential, we just wear it down until it's just servicing like the lowest common denominator of our own pleasure. I actually love the idea that there are some evil bastards out there that are trying to capitalize on this technology to do some up shit. They're like, sir, I'm not sure what we can do. Everyone's making them silly and stupid. Like, all the data is becoming dick jokes.
That sounds like a scene from Austin Powers.
Bring in the fembots! You keep saying you got something.
What's your jab?
So I want just like quick hits from the production agency side. What are the roles involved in a project like this? This is a little bit unique in the sense that it's not as cut and dry as
The different jobs.
Yeah. What are the roles?
There's kind of two producers. I would say there's a content producer and there's a comms producer, right? This is like the person talking to the client. This is the person making sure the files are in the right place.
Remember what Mr. Halloran said.
Making sure the work has been done correctly. The content producer is also a bit a director style. In our case, I would call the content producer Raz overall. And then later on, it was kind of all hands on deck because Raz had to leave in the middle, which was a tricky thing. Not in the middle, at the end. Client-facing producer, content-facing producer, a series of designers and animators. And also in this case, when we were doing previews, there also was editors involved. That's really it. Predominantly, this work is in the hands of animators. It's probably 3-to-1 animators to designers, because the designers just have to prepare the files for the animation. And then from there, those folks hand the content they create off to the content producer, aka director. They review it, make sure it's good. That then goes to the person in charge of interfacing with the client. It's not that cut and dry. There's all sorts of other pieces or duplicates of it, but that's the gist of what you need.
And is there a level where like it requires multiple content producers?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
In this case, we did have them, right? There was Raz kind of leading the charge as a content producer, and then I would call myself secondary in this case, but I was very much part of it as well. And then we had a primary designer, and other people would sit into the design spot.
Yeah.
And then we had a few primary animators, and then a few that were in and out, bouncing between different ones. But the last thing I will say is that when we talk about these structures for how projects will be done, if there is a need for a content producer, a client-facing producer, a animator, and a designer, we at least have to have one of each of those that owns it and becomes the voice of reason for any additional we bring in.
Yeah.
At times, there will always be crunch time. There may be times where there's only one animator. Then all of a sudden, there's 6. In this case, I don't think we ever got down to 1, but for a while it was 3, and then it was 4, and then it was 6. So like it scales up, scales down. So you do have to have those core folks that know all the details. And this then goes all the way back. If you're a professional, what does it look like? Well, you start with a very, very organized set of rules. And if you recall from earlier in this episode, I said we messed that up and we should have said we should have done animatics first. But we learned from it. Another pro tip, just learn from your failures. Don't shit on yourself. Everyone wants you to get better and help them. Jared is
I'm gonna get a tattoo on my chest that's #JustLearn.
That would be a very, very bad decision.
This is a real tattoo!
Yep. No regards.
No regrets?
Yeah.
No regards. Vorses. What did I say? Professional Vorses.
Vorses amateur.
Amateur.
That's great.
That's all we got for today. It has been the Brand Spaceship. You are a person watching the Brand Spaceship.
That's a little presumptive.
Data suggests, if you're still watching, you're in the minority.
Yeah.
Thank you. Watch the next episode where Jared sneezes on command exactly 62 times. Thank you for being here. You are loved.
By somebody, I hope.